Hello, and thanks so much for coming back to join me in part 2 of our calm reflections here. Obviously last week we sort of got our underpainting done, our dry underpainting, and we got the bases of that sky in. And now this week what we're going to be doing is working on the lower half of the painting. In the, on that back horizon there, and also down on all these sands. So the very first thing I'm doing, as you can see there, is I'm re-establishing that back horizon. And what I'm wanting to do now is get the bottom of this painting sort of in balance with the top before I go back and sort of do all of my refining and things. So really what I want to do is, as we did up in the sky before, is sort of define those shapes a little bit more, get a little bit more colour in there, get a little bit more pastel on this paper. Because when we come down to this, to the sands there, we want that enough pastel on there so it's going to start to move around. So as I say, the first thing we're doing is re-establishing that sort of back horizon line there. And the first thing I did was come in with my darkest value for that pier that's going out into the sea there. And then obviously behind that you've got the hillside. So I was working over to the right hand side of the paper to begin with, getting those in, getting the rough sort of shape of how I want that little hillside, what I want it to feel like. Now you might have noticed me then, and you'll see me every now and again, I'm coming in with a little flat paintbrush, just a little small one, a small flat, and now I find this really helpful for horizon lines and things, because obviously when you pop your pastels down, they don't necessarily all go down evenly, and you can find that you can just neaten off those edges with that little fine paintbrush, just dried, not wet at all, just dry, and it'll just start smoothing off. And you'll see me using a couple of paintbrushes in this painting as we go forward, just dry to help me blend and just to help me smooth things off. And so obviously I'm sort of like coming across the horizon line, going over to my left hand side with my trees and things as well. Now over on the right hand side for that back hillside and that jetty there, I've used a combination of blues there. Now bearing in mind that's actually the furthest point in this horizon line there. These front trees, the trees over on the left hand side, as you look, they're closer to us, so I'm using cooler colours in the distance and warmer colours as I start to come forward, and you see me working there, and so as I say, on the right hand side I'm using a combination of blues and things, and on the left hand side I'm warming things up a little bit. I popped in a little bit of my sand colour there. I think I come back and darken that down. It ends up being too light, but I just wanted to get something down there to start off with, and also you saw me putting like a mauvey colour over towards the shore, where the shoreline is meeting that sand, or where the water is meeting that sand. You've got that sort of cast shadow there, as everything's a little bit wet, and so now you can see me. I've coming over to my sea there, and what I did again, used a couple of blues similar to the ones that I've used in the hillside and the jetty there, and also for those sort of back waves, where they're starting to crash over. Now I've put in a sort of light to mid value there. More of a lilac-y colour. Bear in mind, I didn't use white. Your automatic thing is to put white there. But if you use bright white there, you will really pull those forward in the painting. So those waves that are further in the distance, I'm going a little bit darker in value. And so they've got a little bit of interest I'm using, and also sort of connection between the sky and what's going on underneath. I've used that lovely lilac-y colour to sort of indicate those back waves. And so I'm coming, into the sea, looking at my reference photo, seeing where the lightest parts of the sea are. It's not all one colour. And as you know, I like to tend to get a few colours down in any one area, so that I can get those nice subtle blends. And the tool you can see me using at the just then was, that was actually one of Pastel's little tools that you can get from them. And it's just got a little tiny sponge on the end. Now all through the painting I use a variety of methods, sometimes a paintbrush, sometimes a sponge, sometimes my fingers. It just depends on what effect I want in any one area. So you need to have a sort of play with your tools and see what you can do with them, and what sort of different effects you can get. So anyway, my sea over to the right hand side is, it's kind of starting to feel as if that's coming together. So I'm coming now over, and I haven't chosen my darkest value at this stage. I want to sort of get an undertone. And as I mentioned last week, I'm going to sort of up the colours a little bit on here. I'd like to give not warmer, but a slightly different feel rather than grey, which can be quite sombre. I didn't want this painting to feel sombre at all, so I wanted to lift those shadows there in the sands, and so I'm using a combination of purples in those shadows. So I started off with sort of like a mid-range purple just to get the bases of those in, and where it's darker I come back in, as you can see me doing now, and I'm using a darker purple, and that's for where I can sort of like see the darker areas in those shadows, and obviously the reflection of our gentleman there as well. That's pretty dark as well, so I'm coming in there with a combination of the darker tone and that mid-tone, just trying to establish, looking at my reference photo, trying to establish, where all those lights and darks are hitting those sands. And so you're going to see me now popping around the painting a little bit in this lower half, basically with my darker mid-tones first, as you can see, popping in some like gorgeous aqua, that's sort of like a gorgeous turquoisey colour, over to the right hand side there, and you'll see me popping around, because what I do is sometimes I go as far as I can see. Sometimes it's very easy to get lost in a painting, especially when it's complex like this. At first glance, as I mentioned last week, this painting doesn't particularly look complex. But if you want to get it sort of like fairly close to your reference photo, then you need to really pay attention as to your angles and, where your lights and darks are hitting places. Now, angles aren't my best thing, so, I do tend to go backwards and forwards quite a few times on this, sort of readjusting things as I go. And I pop around because I do things as I see them, really. As long as I'm working within the same sort of tonal values, really, I do things as I see them, because as I say, sometimes you can get lost. So if I'm sort of starting to struggle in an area and kind of got myself lost a bit, I'll just pop on over to another area that I can see, and then I'll come back, and often when I come back things are a lot clearer. And so what you're going to see me doing now is working between these mid and dark tones, and just getting down that more colour on there. So I want to get enough colour on here so that I can start to blend it in a mo. So I'll pop back when I'm doing that in just a couple of minutes. All right, see you in a mo. So as you can see, I came in with a couple of slightly lighter values there, on the lilac-y side for those shadows, for that over to the left-hand side as you look, where those highlights are hitting. And as I mentioned, I'm not using my brightest of colours yet. You know, I reserve those towards the end for those little sparkling highlights. So not using those yet, but using that sort of like lighter tone there. And then what you saw me doing then was coming in with a soft paintbrush. As you can see there now, it's kind of a long one, a long round, but it's quite soft, this one. It's got a nice gentle thing. And what you saw me doing was sort of having another little blend, but this time my paintbrush touch was very light. I don't want to dig those pastels out. The idea is to sort of start smoothing them together. You know, remember, that's what I want to get. I really want to get that glisten and that gloss on these sands. So I use that paintbrush to kind of smooth everything together, just like gently teasing the colours together. Once I've got them down, and once I've done that, as you can see, what I'm doing is coming back and putting another layer down on the top of that, because I can see where my gaps are, and you know, things are starting to move around. So I'm now thinking, right, okay, lovely, that's going in the right direction. So coming back now for another layer, another round of these colours, and that's really what I do for the rest of this session. Really, is I just come, you know, I blend a little, put some more pastels down, blend a little more. Now, you know, often you'll hear pastel artists sort of like say, don't blend. But there are times that blending, you know, yes, a lot of times it's better if you don't blend, you know, but on certain paintings, you know, it actually is it's one of the beauties of pastels. And for me, there's no right or wrong way to do anything, especially when it comes to painting. You know, it's by doing things differently, you discover new things, and you discover ways that you can achieve the effects that you want to do. So, you know, yes, be a bit careful. If you overblend your pastels, you will end up dulling them. You'll end up losing that wonderful vibrancy that they have. So any of the blending you see me doing after my initial blend is always soft and gentle. I'm teasing those pastels. I'm not pushing them in or crushing those crystals. I'm just gently sort of teasing them into each other. And then occasionally, as you saw me do then, I came in with a different paintbrush and actually lifted some pastel out, because I didn't want to mark where it was. So you can use your paintbrush. If you use it with a harder fashion, you're going to lift your pastel out. And if you use it in that gentle, very, very gentle teasing sort of way, then, you know, that's how you're going to get some blends going on there. All right. So I'll let you watch me sort of like adding a little bit more colour into this and bringing it through, and I'll pop back in a mo. So you can see these colours sort of starting to come together now, and as you can see, sort of like layer blend, and things have moved around a little bit, you know, because that's what happens. Obviously, when you blend in, you're going to, you know, pull some pastels sort of like across the paper and into each other and things. So you have to go back and re-establish again what you're doing, and each time I'm just coming backwards and forwards, you know, lightening and darkening, just getting all those lovely colours just sort of starting to merge together. So I hope you're enjoying the video, and if you do, please do give me a thumbs up. And as I always say, if you want to see a slowed down version of this where I'm not going at a million miles an hour and you'd like a little bit more explanation, then please consider coming on over and joining me over on Patreon. It would be great to see you there. So obviously I went over to my C on the right hand side there, added a little bit more colour in there, put a little bit of pink in those waves at the back there, and just, you know, sort of re-established again, just as we've done with the sands, re-establish where those waves and the sort of vague balance of how that sea's going on. And at the moment, you just see me now I'm working on the gentleman. Now, as we did in the underpainting, really try and think of him in terms of blocks of light and dark, and you know, sort of shapes of colour really. Try not to get too caught up thinking, oh, that's a welly boot or whatever. Just try and look at the shapes and just try and simplify them down into basic areas of light and dark. And obviously, you know, now I've put a little bit more colouring in the seaside there on the shoreline. You know, I need to strengthen him up. Now at the moment I'm reserving that really bright red right till the end of the painting, but for now I've used sort of like a slightly darker tone than I'm going to use just in the back of his jacket, just to make sure that he's got something in there so that we don't lose him along the way. And so what I'll do is I'll just let you watch these last couple of minutes as this comes together, and I'll pop back in the end and we'll do a quick roundup, and then I'll let you know what's coming up next week. All right, see you in a mo. Okay, so I think we're just about coming there now with my base layers here down on this lower half of the painting. It's kind of feeling in balance with the sky, and it's enough for me for the time being. And now what we're going to be doing next week is doing all those refining, adding some more colours, really making this painting sing, and sort of making sure that we get, I'll show you how I do all the blending later on, and utilising pencils to help me blend at the end to get all those lovely glossy shines. All right then, thanks so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video, and don't forget to give me a thumbs up, or even better, subscribe to my channel, and then obviously you'll get notification when the next videos come up. Thanks so much for watching. I wish you a lovely week, and happy painting.